Have you ever given your whole life to the people you love, only to hear words so sharp they make you question if you ever mattered at all? That's what happened to me. Not from a stranger, not from a neighbor, but from my own daughter. My name is Maggie. I'm 70 years old. I am a widow, a mother, and a grandmother. For most of my life, I thought my story was simple. I loved, I raised, I gave, and in return, I would have the comfort of my family around me as I grew older. That was the dream Frank and I shared. He was my husband, my partner for 50 years, the man who carried me across the threshold of our home and promised me we would always put family first. Frank is gone now. He passed 2 years ago from a heart attack that stole him from me in the blink of an eye. Since then, my house has been far too quiet. I still set his coffee mug in the dish rack. I still keep his chair in its place by the television. I suppose some people would call that holding on too tightly, but for me, it's a way of keeping him close. And maybe that's why I cling to my children and grandchildren the way I do. They are my last living link to him. Every milestone, every celebration, every small gathering means something to me, because it means I'm still part of them. So when my daughter Rebecca called me one Tuesday morning, I thought it was to talk about my granddaughter Katie's graduation party. Katie, the first lawyer in our family, the girl who used to crawl into my lap and beg me to tell her bedtime stories, the young woman I helped coach through law school applications. I had been saving for weeks to buy a new dress for her big day. I was even planning to bake her favorite chocolate cake. But Rebecca's voice was sharp, cold, almost like she was speaking to a stranger. She said, "We'll celebrate without you. You always ruin things." My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the kitchen counter, trying to steady myself, wondering if I had heard her correctly. My own daughter, the child I carried for 9 months, raised through fevers and heartbreaks, was telling me I wasn't welcome, that I ruined things. Her words pierced me deeper than any knife. They didn't just keep me out of a party. They told me I didn't belong in my own family anymore. At 70 years old, rejection feels heavier than it did in youth. You see, when you're young, you tell yourself there's still time to mend fences, still opportunities to prove your worth. But when you reach my age, every lost moment with family feels final. Every word cuts deeper because you don't know how many more years you'll have with them. I'll tell you honestly, I sat in that kitchen with tears streaming down my face, asking myself what I had done so terribly wrong. Yes, I've made mistakes. Yes, I've spoken out of turn sometimes. But haven't we all? Don't the years of love and sacrifice count for something? It was in that moment that I realized something every elder eventually comes to face. Sometimes, no matter how much you give, you will be treated as if you're a burden. Sometimes, the very people you carried on your back will act as though you weigh them down. And before I continue with my story, I want to pause and speak directly to you. Yes, you watching right now. To every grandmother, every grandfather, every elder who has ever felt overlooked or unwanted, may you be blessed with strength. May your days be filled with peace in your body, clarity in your mind, and dignity in your spirit. May your health be preserved, your home be warm, and your voice never silenced by those who think age makes you less important. And to anyone caring for an elder right now, may your heart be softened to honor the sacrifices they made for you. I pray that none of you will ever hear words like the ones I heard that morning. But if you have, know this, you are not alone. Now, before I tell you the rest of my story, how my daughter's betrayal turned into something far bigger than I ever expected, I want to invite you to join me here. Subscribe to this channel because these stories are not just mine. They belong to all of us who have lived long enough to see both the beauty and the cruelty of family. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from, so we know how far our voice is reaching. And let's build a place together where no grandmother, no grandfather, no elder will ever feel forgotten. Because sometimes, the people who tried to push us aside end up teaching us the most important lesson of all, that even in our later years, we still have a story worth telling. When Rebecca told me, "We'll celebrate without you. You always ruin things," the air left my lungs. My hand shook so badly I had to grip the edge of the counter just to stay upright. I am 70 years old, and I have heard hurtful things in my life, but nothing compares to hearing those words from the mouth of the very child I once rocked to sleep. Ruin things. I asked her, my voice trembling but still carrying the weight of a mother's disbelief. "Rebecca, how could you say that to me?" Her tone sharpened, almost rehearsed. Mom, you know what I mean. Katie doesn't want drama on her special day. You always make things about you. I swallowed hard, trying to remember what she was talking about. She brought up Katie's sweet 16 party years ago, accusing me of embarrassing everyone. In her telling, I made a scene with the caterers. But my memory was different. I had quietly pulled Rebecca aside to mention one of the servers seemed drunk. I was protecting my family from what could have turned into a real liability. She also brought up Katie's high school graduation. You spent the whole time whining about your arthritis, she said. In my mind, I had only mentioned it once when someone asked why I was walking slowly. Apparently, to her, even that was a crime. Each word felt like she was rewriting our history, turning moments of care and vulnerability into accusations. I wanted to shout, "That's not what happened." But instead, I stayed silent, listening as she listed my supposed failings like items on a grocery list. "Rebecca," I whispered, "I love Katie. I just want to celebrate with her. I would never ruin her day." But her voice only grew colder. "That's the problem, Mom. It's always about what you want, what you need. We're tired of it." The word "we" cut me deeper than all the rest. Did she mean Katie? Did my sweet granddaughter, who used to climb into my lap for stories and beg me for advice, agree with this? I asked to hear from Katie directly, but Rebecca brushed it aside. "She's busy. She doesn't have time to manage your feelings." My feelings. That's what my love, my longing to be included, had been reduced to, an inconvenience. At that moment, something inside me cracked. I felt as though I had been pushed outside of my own family circle, watching from the shadows while everyone else laughed together. I hung up the phone before she could say another word. The kitchen felt bigger, emptier, and for the first time in a long time, I truly understood what loneliness meant. After I hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the phone as though it might apologize for carrying such cruelty into my home. My kitchen, once alive with family dinners and grandchildren running in and out, felt like a hollow stage after the actors had left. I looked around the room and saw not just walls and furniture, but 50 years of my life etched into every corner. Frank and I had bought this house when we were newlyweds. He carried me across the doorway, laughing as though it were the grandest castle in the world. We raised our children here. On the kitchen doorframe, faint pencil marks still showed their heights year by year, each one a memory I refused to paint over. Every birthday cake had been cut at this table, every Christmas morning filled with wrapping paper and laughter echoing through the halls. Now, all of it had been reduced to silence. For bedrooms stood empty. Frank's chair sat untouched in the living room, angled perfectly toward the television. His favorite coffee mug still waited in the dish rack. I could almost hear his voice saying, "Don't let them push you out, Maggie. This is your home." Rebecca had been hinting for months that I should downsize. She dressed it up with phrases like, "It'll be easier for you, Mom," or "You'll have activities and friends your own age." What she really meant was that she didn't want me here anymore. She wanted me tucked away in some senior facility, out of sight, out of mind. But how do you walk away from the very place where your life unfolded? This house holds my laughter, my tears, my marriage, my motherhood. It's not just wood and bricks. It is my proof that I belonged somewhere once. Still, her words that morning made me question myself. Was I clinging too tightly? Was I forcing myself into a family that no longer wanted me? The thought chilled me more than any winter night. I stood by the window, looking at the quiet street, and felt the weight of abandonment pressing down. I was not just excluded from a party. I was being erased from the story of my own family. That afternoon, the mail arrived, another reminder of the weight I carried alone. Property taxes, utilities, and medical bills piled higher each month. Frank's pension and my Social Security barely stretched far enough. Repairs on the roof had been postponed. The furnace wheezed each winter like it might give up for good, and every unexpected cost felt like a blow I could not afford. Rebecca knew all of this. She had been helping me with paperwork since Frank's death, always insisting that she handle the details. At first, I thought it was kindness. Lately, I began to wonder if her eagerness to move me into one of those places wasn't just about convenience, but about control. As I flipped through the bills, her words from the morning replayed in my head, "You always ruin things." I whispered them aloud, tasting the bitterness. Did my presence truly sour celebrations? Was my love really a burden? I pressed my palm against the kitchen counter, the same one where little hands once helped me roll cookie dough. Those hands were grown now, and somehow, they no longer reached for mine. That night, I sat alone in Frank's study. His portrait watched from the desk, his gentle eyes frozen in a photograph. I spoke into the stillness. "Frank, they don't want me anymore." My voice cracked as I said it. The tears that followed weren't soft. They came heavy, like years of sacrifice being washed away in one cruel moment. I had given my family everything. And yet, in their eyes, I was now something to set aside. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever seen a parent or a grandparent excluded from a celebration? Have you witnessed elders treated as though they don't matter anymore? If so, please share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters, and your stories remind the world that our elders deserve respect, not rejection. As I sat there, my heart heavy with sorrow, one truth became painfully clear. I was no longer just lonely. I was being erased. The morning after Rebecca's cruel phone call, I woke up with a heaviness I could not shake. But somewhere inside me, another feeling stirred, an old instinct I hadn't felt in years. You see, before I retired, I worked as a high school guidance counselor. I learned how to spot when teenagers were lying, when stories didn't add up, when something was being hidden. Rebecca's words, her insistence that I was confused, that I always ruined things, kept circling my mind. And the way she'd been pushing me to move out of my home, handling my finances as if I were incapable, it all began to sound less like care and more like control. So I did something I hadn't done since Frank passed away. I went to my bedroom closet and pulled out the dusty box of financial documents I had avoided for 2 long years. Inside were bank statements, insurance records, pension documents, papers I had once trusted Rebecca to manage for me. I spread them out on the bed and put on my reading glasses. My hands trembled, but not from weakness, from fear of what I might find. At first, the numbers looked ordinary. My savings after Frank's death, the life insurance payout, the pension benefits. But then I began comparing statements month to month. That's when I noticed it, large sums quietly disappearing, not once, but again and again. In March, the balance showed over $120,000. By July, it had fallen by nearly $40,000. My breath caught. Where had it gone? The withdrawals weren't tied to funeral costs or household repairs. Instead, the transfers went into something called Sullivan Family Trust. I froze. My maiden name is Sullivan, yes, but I had never established any such trust. I picked up the phone and called the bank. After being transferred from one department to another, I finally spoke to a woman named Patricia Chen, who seemed to know me far too well. "Oh, Mrs. Sullivan, I'm glad you called," she said kindly. "We were hoping to schedule a follow-up about your trust administration." My grip on the phone tightened. "Excuse me? What trust?" "The Sullivan Family Trust," she replied. "You signed the documents shortly after your husband's passing. Don't you remember?" "No," I whispered, my chest pounding. She offered to email me copies, confirming my supposed email, but I have never in my life used that address. At that moment, the truth slammed into me. Rebecca had been pretending to be me. She had created a false identity, signed my name, and stolen my money right under my nose. And suddenly, my grief gave way to something else. Suspicion hardened into certainty. As I sat there with papers scattered around me, my thoughts racing, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. Unexpected visitors were rare these days. I shuffled to the door, and when I opened it, I nearly burst into tears. It was Katie, my granddaughter. She stood there in jeans and her Yale sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes uncertain. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to sit on my lap, begging for just one more story before bedtime. "Grandma," she said softly, "can we talk?" My throat tightened, but I nodded, stepping aside to let her in. The kettle went on automatically. It was our old ritual, tea in the kitchen. But as I set out the mugs, I noticed how she avoided my eyes, fidgeting with her phone. "Mom told me about your conversation yesterday," she began. "But I want you to know something. I never said I didn't want you at my party. Not once." The words nearly knocked me off my feet. You didn't. Of course not. She looked me squarely in the eye now, her voice steady. You're my grandmother. You've always been there for me. You helped me with my essays, you encouraged me when I wanted to quit. Why would I not want you there? Tears welled in my eyes. Rebecca had lied. She had tried to poison even this bond. But Katie wasn't finished. There's more. Lately, Mom's been saying things about you, about your memory. She told me you've been getting confused, forgetting conversations, misplacing money. She made it sound like you weren't yourself anymore. I stared at her, my heart pounding. Katie, that's not true. I may grieve. I may be lonely. But I know my mind is sound. She nodded quickly. I believe you. That's why I came today. I had to see for myself. I took a deep breath and led her to the study where I'd spread out the papers. Her eyes widened when she saw the bank statements, the strange transfers, the folder marked Sullivan Family Trust. Together we sat down, and for the next 2 hours, my law student granddaughter became my ally. She scanned documents with sharp eyes, noticing details I'd missed. Forged signatures, mismatched dates, suspicious withdrawals. She photographed everything, building a digital record. Finally, she looked up from a page, her face pale. Grandma, she's stolen over $200,000. The room seemed to spin. 200,000. The nest egg Frank had left me, our life's work, siphoned away by my own daughter. And in that moment, my sorrow turned into something else, resolve. Katie scrolled through her phone, comparing numbers and signatures with a seriousness that reminded me just how close she was to becoming a lawyer. Suddenly, her brows knitted, and she pushed a paper toward me. Look at this, Grandma. These aren't just withdrawals. Mom redirected your pension checks into that trust account. And here, she even took out a loan against your house. My breath caught. A loan? Without me knowing. Katie nodded grimly. The signature looks like yours, but it's not. She forged it. I pressed a hand against my chest. To think my own daughter had been practicing my handwriting, using my name like a mask, it chilled me. Katie kept digging. Credit card statements showed trips I had never heard of, designer purchases Rebecca had never mentioned, tuition payments for her younger children. Then came something worse. Online gaming accounts. Thousands of dollars poured into poker sites, the balances showing constant losses. She's gambling, Katie whispered. And she owes a fortune. It felt like a punch to the stomach. Rebecca wasn't just careless. She was desperate. My savings had become her lifeline to cover debts that could never be repaid. But the deepest cut came when Katie pulled out a folder labeled Sunset Manor. Inside were glossy brochures for a memory care facility. Tucked within was an application in my name. My blood ran cold as I read words like moderate cognitive decline and requires supervised care. My hands shook as I gripped the pages. She wants to lock me away, I murmured. Katie's face was pale, her eyes wide with horror. She's setting up to declare you incompetent. Once that happens, she'll have total control over everything you own. I sank into Frank's old chair, staring at the evidence of my daughter's betrayal. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about erasing me, stripping me of dignity, silencing my voice. Tears burned my eyes, but I forced myself to steady my breath. Rebecca might think I was weak, but she had forgotten something. I had survived 70 years of life. I had walked through grief, hardship, and loneliness. I wasn't about to surrender now. Katie reached for my hand. Grandma, what are we going to do? For the first time in days, my voice didn't shake. We're going to fight back. But first, we let her think she's winning. In that moment, the balance shifted. I was no longer the wounded mother. I was a woman preparing for a battle I never expected to face. The clock ticked past midnight, but Katie and I were still at the desk, papers covering every inch like pieces of a puzzle we were finally solving. She photographed each page, creating a trail that Rebecca could never erase. When she reached the last document, Katie closed her phone and looked at me with tears in her eyes. Grandma, this is elder abuse. It's fraud, theft, and more. If this goes to court, she could face years in prison. I leaned back in Frank's chair, staring at the mess before me. $200,000 gone. A fraudulent trust. Gambling debts that could ruin anyone. Plans to have me declared incompetent. And yet, instead of fear, I felt a new kind of energy stirring in me, clarity. For months, maybe even years, Rebecca had tried to convince the world that I was weak, confused, and incapable. But tonight, with my granddaughter at my side, I knew the truth. I was not the helpless old woman she painted me to be. I was still Maggie, the woman who raised children, guided students, and stood by Frank through decades of life. Katie broke the silence. What do we do now? I reached over, placing my hand on hers. We let her think she's in control. Let her believe her lies are working. And when the moment is right, we'll show her and everyone else the truth. Katie's eyes lit up with determination. At the party? I nodded. Yes. She said I ruined things? I'll show her what real ruin looks like. For the first time in days, a smile tugged at the corners of my lips. Not of joy, but of resolve. Before I go further, let me turn to you, the ones watching and listening. Have you ever seen families torn apart by money? Have you ever witnessed inheritance or finances bring out betrayal where love should have been? If you have, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voices matter, and your stories remind others that no elder deserves to be treated this way. That night, as Katie hugged me tightly before leaving, I felt something shift. I was no longer abandoned and erased. I was a grandmother preparing for justice, standing shoulder to shoulder with the granddaughter who still believed in me. Rebecca had written me off. She thought I was finished. But the truth is, I was just getting started. The next few days felt like living two lives at once. In front of Rebecca, I played the part of the frail, confused mother she wanted me to be. Behind her back, Katie and I were planning something she could never have expected. Rebecca called me twice that week. Each time, her voice carried a sugar-coated sharpness that made my skin crawl. "Mom, I hope you're not still upset about the party," she said one evening. "You know changes are hard at your age. We just want Katie to have a special day without complications." I bit my tongue until I could taste iron, then answered in a trembling voice, "I suppose you're right. I have been overwhelmed lately." She sighed dramatically. "That's why I've been handling your finances, Mom. Less stress for you. Maybe we should think about getting you some help at home. Someone to manage your medications, maybe even look into a facility where you'd be more comfortable." Every word was another brick in the wall she was building around me, but I didn't let my voice betray my anger. "Maybe," I whispered, keeping my tone weak, small. "I'll think about it." When I hung up, my hands shook, not from fear, but from the effort of pretending. Later that night, Katie and I met at a small cafe in the next town. She slid a folder across the table, her face serious. "Grandma, I've been putting together everything we'll need. Documents, timelines, even the statutes. If this goes to court, Mom's looking at fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse." I opened the folder. My granddaughter had outlined every crime in neat order, each backed by the evidence we had gathered. The girl who once asked me for spelling help was now preparing a case strong enough to bring down her own mother. "Rebecca's not just stealing," Katie continued. "She's drowning in gambling debt. I traced some of the accounts. She owes nearly $500,000. That's why she's so desperate. She'll say or do anything to cover it up." $500,000. The number rang in my ears. My daughter had gambled not just with money, but with her soul. I closed the folder and looked at Katie. "We'll use the party. She'll expect me to stay away, but that's when we show everyone the truth. Family, friends, colleagues, everyone she's been lying to will see it all." Katie's eyes glimmered with resolve. "We'll need to be ready for her reaction. She won't go down quietly." I gave a small, tired smile. "She thinks I always ruin things? This time, I'll ruin the lies she built her world on." That night, as I sat in my quiet kitchen, I felt Frank's absence more than ever. Yet I also felt his presence, as if he were whispering that I was stronger than I believed. Strong enough to see this through. 2 nights before the party, my son Michael called from Seattle. His voice carried a weight I hadn't heard in years. "Mom," he said, "Rebecca called me. She's trying to convince me that you're slipping. Maybe you need assisted living. She wanted me to talk to you about it." I gripped the phone tightly. "And what did you say?" "I told her she was out of her mind," Michael snapped. "Mom, I talked to you last week. You remember details about my kids' soccer games that I'd forgotten myself. You're sharp. There's nothing wrong with you. Relief washed over me. At least one of my children hadn't been poisoned against me. Michael, I need to tell you something, I said, lowering my voice. For the next hour, I explained everything. Rebecca's lies, the stolen money, the forged papers, the gambling debts, the plan to declare me incompetent. He cursed under his breath. That woman is no daughter of mine. I'm getting on a plane. I'll be there tomorrow. No, I said firmly. You can't. If she suspects we know, she'll destroy evidence. You need to stay quiet. Act like nothing is wrong. We'll get one chance to show her lies for what they are, and it has to be at the party. He resisted at first, but finally agreed. Before we hung up, he said, Mom, after this is over, I want you to come stay with us. You shouldn't be alone. Tears filled my eyes. Thank you, Michael. That means more than you know. That night, I wandered into Frank's study. His portrait sat on the desk, the corners of his mouth turned in that familiar half-smile. I sat in his chair, the leather cool beneath me, and spoke into the quiet. Frank, I whispered, you always said I was tougher than I looked. I wish you were here to tell me that now. I wish you could hold my hand tomorrow when I walk into that house. I've lost so much, but I can't lose myself. Not to her. The silence stretched, but in my heart, I imagined his steady voice. Stand tall, Maggie. You've carried this family for years. You can carry yourself through this, too. I closed my eyes and prayed, not just for courage, but for clarity. I prayed for the strength to face my daughter without crumbling, for the grace to protect Katie from guilt, and for the wisdom to let justice, not vengeance, guide my steps. By the time I rose from the chair, my heart was steadier. Rebecca thought she had broken me. But she had forgotten something important. I come from a generation that knows how to endure. The countdown to the party had begun. The day of Katie's graduation party arrived like a storm cloud on the horizon. I woke early, nerves buzzing in my chest, and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The quiet of the morning felt heavy with expectation. I took time to center myself. I whispered a prayer for courage, for dignity, for the strength to face not just my daughter's lies, but the shame of exposing them in front of so many people. Lord, grant me a steady voice, a firm heart, and a spirit that cannot be shaken, I murmured. By noon, Rebecca called. Her voice carried its usual syrupy edge. Mom, I hope you understand why we decided this. It isn't personal. We just want Katie's day to be perfect. I forced a smile into my tone. Of course, dear. I wouldn't want to ruin anything. She sounded relieved, as if my compliance sealed her victory. Good. I'll send you pictures after. I ended the call and looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror. For the first time in months, I straightened my shoulders and smiled. She was right about one thing. I would ruin her day, but not with complaints or clumsy interruptions. This time, I would ruin the lies she had built her world on. That afternoon, Katie came by to help me get ready. She laid out the navy blue dress I had bought weeks earlier, the one I thought I'd wear as a proud grandmother. Now it would serve another purpose, to show Rebecca and everyone else that I was not the broken figure she painted me to be. As Katie styled my silver hair, she squeezed my hand. Grandma, are you sure you're ready? I looked at her in the mirror. I've been ready for 2 years. She took my husband's memory, my home's peace, and my dignity. Tonight, I will take it back. The hours crawled by until it was nearly time. My old Honda waited in the driveway, polished as best I could manage. Katie would meet me at the side door, just as we planned, with her laptop and the evidence ready. Before leaving, I paused once more in Frank's study. I touched the frame of his photo and whispered, "Stand with me tonight." The house felt alive with his memory, and in that moment, I carried his strength with me. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the yard, I locked the door and stepped out. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was steady. Rebecca thought she had written me out of the story. Tonight, I would write myself back in with the truth. Saturday evening arrived, warm and clear. I stood before the mirror one last time, smoothing the navy blue dress I had saved for Katie's celebration. The silver in my hair shone after Katie's careful styling. I pinned on Frank's old cufflink, turned into a brooch after his passing, as if carrying a piece of him with me. I was no longer the trembling woman clutching the counter after a cruel phone call. Tonight, I walked with my head high, reclaiming the dignity my daughter had tried to strip away. At 7:30, I drove to Rebecca's house. Cars filled the driveway, laughter spilled from the windows, and music floated into the night air. My chest tightened, but I did not falter. Katie met me at the side door, her emerald dress shimmering. She looked every bit the proud graduate, but her eyes carried the same determination I felt. She hugged me quickly. "Ready, Grandma?" I squeezed her hand. "I've been waiting for this moment." Together, we slipped into the kitchen where caterers bustled, trays of hors d'oeuvres balanced in their hands. I couldn't help but notice the money paying for this spread had come from my stolen savings. The thought steadied my nerves. The living room buzzed with conversation, filled with nearly 50 people, family members, Katie's classmates, Rebecca's work colleagues. Glasses clinked, voices rose in cheerful chatter, but the moment I stepped in, silence rippled through the crowd. Rebecca spotted me instantly. Her face twisted for half a second before she plastered on a smile. "Mom." "What a surprise," she said loudly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I thought you weren't feeling well enough to come." I returned her smile, steady and calm. I wouldn't miss Katie's day for anything. Murmurs spread. Guests shifted, sensing the tension though they didn't yet understand it. Rebecca's grip on her wine glass tightened. Katie moved to the television mounted above the fireplace, her laptop in hand. "Actually," she announced, her voice clear, "before we toast, I'd like to share something special. A little presentation." Rebecca's eyes flickered with panic. "Katie, we already have the slideshow." "This will just take a moment," Katie interrupted firmly. "I promise it will be worth everyone's attention." The guests, curious, gathered closer. The room dimmed as Katie connected her laptop to the screen. I stood to the side, my hands folded, my heart racing but steady. Rebecca's carefully constructed world was seconds away from shattering. The first slide lit up the screen, bank statements, side by side, showing the steady drain of my accounts. Katie's voice carried through the room, calm and authoritative, the voice of a woman trained for the courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "I'd like to present evidence of a 2-year pattern of financial abuse committed against my grandmother, Margaret Sullivan." The room froze. You could have heard a pin drop. All eyes turned toward Rebecca, whose smile cracked like thin ice. Katie clicked to the next slide. Over $200,000 was transferred from my grandmother's accounts into a fraudulent trust she never authorized. This money was then funneled into gambling accounts, luxury purchases, and debts my mother accumulated. Gasps spread through the guests. A colleague of Rebecca's shook her head in disbelief. My brother-in-law stepped closer to the screen, squinting at the documents. "Rebecca," he said slowly, "what is this?" Rebecca let out a laugh that sounded forced, brittle. "Oh, come on. Mom's confused. She doesn't remember half the things she signs anymore. I was just managing her finances." "Really?" Katie's tone cut through her mother's words. She flipped to the next slide, showing a string of emails. "Here is correspondence between my mother and a bank specialist, using a fake email address to impersonate my grandmother. These emails date back 6 months before my grandfather's death." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Someone whispered, "She planned this even before he passed?" Rebecca's face reddened. She raised her voice. "This is being blown out of proportion. You don't understand." Katie didn't flinch. "Let's talk about where the money actually went." The next slide showed online gaming accounts, the balances in the red, the staggering debts. Screenshots of payments to cover losses filled the screen. "She owes nearly $500,000, Katie said evenly. "And she used my grandmother's savings to cover her addiction." The murmurs turned into a wave of disgust. Rebecca's boss, standing near the back, stared at the evidence with wide eyes. "Rebecca," she said coldly, "is this true?" Rebecca's hands trembled, but she forced a laugh. "It's not like that. I was trying to protect her assets, to make sure nothing got lost." But Katie wasn't done. She clicked to the final slide, the Sunset Manor application. My name, my forged signature, and the damning words, "moderate cognitive decline," requires supervised care. Gasps turned into outrage. One woman covered her mouth. My son Michael's voice rang out from across the room, sharp with fury. You were going to lock your own mother away? Rebecca's mask shattered. Her voice rose into a shriek. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying. Mom, tell them. Tell them you asked me for help. I stepped forward for the first time, my voice steady. No, Rebecca. Tonight, I will tell them the truth. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on me. The stage was set for the final blow. I faced the room, standing taller than I had in years. My voice rang out, clear and unshaken. I'm not confused. I'm not losing my memory. I am a mother and a grandmother who has been stolen from, lied to, and humiliated by her own daughter. She drained my savings, forged my name, and planned to take away my freedom. But tonight, the lies stop. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests shook their heads in disbelief. Others looked at Rebecca with open disgust. And in case anyone doubts what they've seen, I continued, holding up my phone, this entire presentation has been recorded. Every document, every word, every excuse. And in just a few minutes, the police will be here. Rebecca's face was drained of color. You called the police? Yes, I said calmly. Yesterday. They've had time to review the evidence. Tonight, they're coming for you. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Blue and red lights flashed outside. Conversations halted as two uniformed officers stepped in, followed by Detective Martinez. She spoke briefly with Katie, glanced at the screen, and then turned toward Rebecca. Rebecca Sullivan, you're under arrest for elder financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. The room erupted. Guests pulled out their phones, whispering in shock. Rebecca fought against the handcuffs, her voice shrill. She's lying. Mom, tell them you're confused. Tell them you didn't mean it. I lifted my chin. No, Rebecca. I'm not confused. I am clear. And the only person ruining this celebration is you. The officers led her out, her screams fading into the night. Silence followed, heavy and electric. Then, slowly, people began to approach me. Family, friends, even strangers, offering words of support, apologies, admiration. Katie wrapped her arms around me, her voice trembling. Grandma, you were incredible. I stroked her hair, my heart finally light. No, my dear. We were incredible. Together, we reclaimed the truth. Later, after the guests dispersed, Michael called from Seattle. His voice cracked with emotion. Mom, I wish I'd been there to see it. I'm proud of you. For the first time in years, I felt whole again. Not erased, not silenced, but seen. And now, to you watching this, do you believe justice was served tonight? Should a daughter who betrays her own mother in this way pay the price for her choices? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe more people need to hear this story, please share this video. Together, we can raise awareness about elder abuse and protect those who deserve dignity in their later years. Rebecca thought she could bury me in silence. Instead, she buried herself in the truth. The weeks after the party felt like waking from a long nightmare. For years, I had allowed Rebecca's words and actions to shrink me, to make me doubt my worth. But the night she was exposed, something inside me shifted. The mask she forced onto me was gone, and in its place stood the woman I had always been, capable, steady, and unwilling to be erased. Rebecca's arrest rippled through the family. Relatives who had once kept their distance called to apologize. Friends stopped by with casseroles as though feeding me was a way to say, "We see you now. We believe you." For so long, I'd been painted as difficult and confused. That illusion crumbled the moment she was taken away in handcuffs. The courts moved swiftly. With Katie's meticulous evidence, Rebecca faced charges of fraud, theft, identity misuse, and elder abuse. The sentence was 8 years in federal prison. As a mother, part of me grieved. No matter what she had done, she was still my child. But justice was not about vengeance. It was about truth. And truth was the only way to protect not just me, but others like me. Michael kept his promise. He flew me to Seattle, where I settled into a small apartment near his family. His children greeted me with hugs, his wife welcomed me warmly, and for the first time in years, I felt surrounded by love instead of suspicion. My evenings were filled with family dinners, school plays, and the simple joy of being wanted. Katie became my constant companion during those months, balancing her bar exam preparation with visits to check on me. When the results came in, she knocked on my door, tears streaming down her face, her smile brighter than I had ever seen. "Grandma," she said breathlessly, "I passed. And I've accepted a position with the prosecutor's office." "Guess what division?" I laughed through my own tears. "Elder abuse and financial crimes?" She nodded, squeezing my hands. "Yes." I told them I already have personal experience with the subject. I pulled her into my arms. "You've turned our pain into purpose, Katie. That is the best gift you could ever give me." In her victory, I felt Frank's presence. He always believed in justice, in standing up for what is right even when it hurts. Katie was carrying that torch now, ensuring no other grandmother would feel the betrayal I endured. And as for me, I found peace not in bitterness, but in resilience. Justice had been served, but more importantly, dignity had been restored. Rebecca thought she was taking away my power. Instead, she reminded me that I still had it all along. Before I close, I want to speak directly to you watching and listening. To every elder who has ever been silenced, overlooked, or made to feel like a burden, may you find strength to hold your ground. May your voice never be dismissed. May your health, your dignity, and your spirit be honored by those around you. To those who care for parents and grandparents, may you see not just their age, but their history. May you remember the sacrifices they made for you, and may kindness guide every choice you make with them. And to those who have suffered betrayal, whether by family, friends, or anyone you trusted, remember this. Justice may be slow, but it can arrive. And when it does, you will discover that you are stronger than you ever imagined. Now, if this story touched your heart, I ask you for one thing. Please subscribe to this channel so more voices like mine can be heard. Like this video if you believe every elder deserves dignity. Share it so awareness of elder abuse can spread. And please, in the comments, tell me what lesson you carry from my story. Your reflections not only matter, they may help someone else find courage. I am Maggie. I was told I ruin things. Perhaps I do. But I have learned to ruin lies, betrayal, and cruelty, and that, my friend, is the kind of ruin I will never regret.